what was the path from business to real estate to podcast? Like, why those three things?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Well, so I was always, like I told you, I was into real estate from while I was in college. While I was in college, I was like looking at deals and going to look at deals, reading tons of books, following bigger pockets, like obsessed with the Burr method, yada, yada, yada. And the first house we bought was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath house. And we used a VA loan. So it was zero down. We bought it for $60,000, this cute little house. And I knew when I bought that house, this is going to be a rental someday.
That's
And
cool.
in that time of buying that house and starting my pest control business and having a new baby,
A lot.
yeah, it's a lot. Within that first year, I also had bought my first rental property. And so that was my first one I bought. And then I just started buying more. And the next thing you know, I was like, you know what? I think it'd be fun to have a podcast because I love talking to people. Obviously, you can tell I've got the gift of gab, but I love asking people questions and hearing like truly deeply connecting with people. Like I'm tired. I get so tired with the surface level conversations. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's get deeper. Let's get to some substance and let me like really truly connect with you and be more vulnerable. And I love that about a podcast because a lot of times it gives me that opportunity.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So it's interesting. You had real estate kind of on your mind from the beginning, which is really cool. And then I totally agree about the podcast. It's almost like a forced presence where a lot of people I think can struggle, and I can struggle on this too, where in a conversation it's really hard to be present. But the fun thing about a podcast is you are making someone be present, because if they're
Yeah.
not present, the conversation's probably not going to go anywhere. So
Yeah. And then
I
you're not
agree
giving
with
any
you.
value to your listeners or whatever,
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. I'm curious, kind of about some mentorship. Like, how did you? Well, first of all, there's a couple different things, but you said you went on a 2-year mission. You said you were in the military. Who did you have growing up that was pouring into you, that was kind of leading you into maybe even decisions or encouraging you a certain direction? And then who do you have now?
Yeah. So to be honest, I don't feel like this is fair to say. Like, I want to say no one
Hmm.
at the beginning. And I don't feel like that's fair to say because like my parents are good people, but they're people that, struggled paying their bills. They've been bankrupt a few couple times. Like, they never asked me about what was going on in school. They didn't really care about what was going on in my little world. So I think I was left it to myself,
Mm.
in all reality. And that's a long story in and of itself. But currently, or through my journey, a lot of my mentors have literally been reading books. Like I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with self-improvement and growth, and I think everybody should be. So I constantly am reading books. I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I have a lot of mentors that don't even know they're my mentors because it's not like a formal thing
Yeah.
that I learned from. So I've got a lot, and I've had a lot of key mentors that have helped me along the way to get to where I'm at today, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the books thing. I think that's such an easy path for people. And it really is. It's crazy if you really think about it. And I know people have talked about it before, but if you think about it, a lot of books are a lot of hours. Sometimes it's an entire life wrapped up in one book. So it's like having a mentor in your pocket. So sometimes I feel like people can overlook the book as a mentor because it's so simple, it's so easy to access. But man, there's gold in books, and I wish more people would open their eyes to that.
And what's so funny about it too, this is, and I know you're spiritual and Christian and stuff, but like
Yeah.
the easiness of the way, like for whatever reason, because of the easiness of the way, a lot of times we don't do these things that have huge implications and impact on our life.
Yeah.
And I love reading books. Actually, the way I do it, and this is just a little hack that's been super helpful for me, is I listen to it on like a 1.5 speed or higher, but typically about a 1.5 speed. I read along with it with the book and the audio, and then I'll pause it, make notes, right? And I just learn so much faster that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, that I've never tried that before. Usually I'm like highlighting things and doing that, but I bet that helps a lot.
Oh, a ton. And it helps me read faster. Like I've learned to read faster just because it's on a faster speed. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing it at a faster rate. But
And
anyways,
talking
that's just
about
a
being
little.
yeah, talking about being present. I mean, you are present. Like you're not focused on any audio while you're reading, because that sometimes I can do when I'm reading. If I'm in an environment, my mind can wander, and then I
Yeah.
go through a whole page and I'm like, crap, what did I just
Yeah.
read? I got to go back and read it. So that's a good way to do that. I may have to try that.
Yeah, what I also like to do that I've got, if you can't see my office, but I've got whiteboards literally all around me. Because a lot of times what I'll do too, if I learn a concept from a book, I will try to write it on the whiteboard and try to like reteach myself it and like, okay, try to piece things together that weren't quite connecting. And then I go, how can I apply it to my current life or business now? And then I just learn more that way. And then if I teach somebody else that, which is also part of the reason why I do a podcast and some of the content is because not necessarily because I'm a guru at those things, I'm teaching somebody else what I just learned so that it
Yeah.
solidifies what I've already
Yep.
learned.
For sure. And that's what I talk to people, because there are people who are like, well, who are you to run a podcast? Who are you to do this? And I'm like, really, I'm just learning on the fly. I'm just publishing it. So it's
Yeah.
like a public journal. That's the way I
Yeah.
look at it. It's like,
Yeah.
if you wanna listen along and learn with me, cool. If not, it's okay. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. I
Um,
love it. That's exactly why I started a podcast. It was to learn and grow and to connect with people and hopefully provide value to other people. But
yeah.
selfishly, a lot of it's just for my own personal growth.
Yeah. No, I definitely know you provide value for sure. So I'll put you on the spot. What's your favorite book from last year, and then your favorite podcast you were listening to last year?
Okay. My favorite podcast from last year is probably the Ed Milet podcast. So that's
Yeah,
an easy one for me. And my favorite book from this last year. Ooh,
a tough one.
that's a tough one because I've read so many this year, last year. Um, I would probably have to say $100 Million Offers by Alex Hermosi.
I haven't read that one. I don't think I've even heard of that
So
one.
good as far as like marketing and creating offers that people feel
Okay.
stupid not to say yes to. It's so good.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
And then I agree on the Ed Milet. I really like Ed Milet. I actually just had a road trip today, and I listened to him with John Gordon. Have you heard that one?
um
It's the newest one.
no, I haven't. No, I
Okay,
haven't.
so you should listen. I love John Gordon. I've read John Gordon books for a while now, and the whole podcast interview is just really cool. It obviously, John's a Christian and he is very spiritual, so they kind of go down the spiritual rabbit
Yeah.
hole, and they talk about, neurological pathways, and it's a really good episode. So you should check that
Yeah,
one out. I may just
his
link it in this
I'll definitely check it out. He's my favorite. He's probably my favorite podcaster. Just the way he conducts himself, the way the content he brings on. I mean, if I could be like any podcaster, it'd probably be Ed Milet, man. I just
Yeah.
love that dude.
He's definitely got an energy about him. I mean, I think
Yeah,
he'd scare me if I saw him in person. I'm like, are you
for
gonna hurt
sure.
me? But
For sure.
he does a good job.
What about a bad decision, bro? Give us the juicy details. I mean, what have you done to just screw
Oh,
things up?
gosh, do you want me to talk real estate? Do you want me to talk
Give me the
business?
juiciest one you can think of.
Dude, I'll tell you the most recent one that I did that cost me probably over $20,000. So I bought this real estate property, got it off the market or off market, so it wasn't on the MLS. I bought it for 85,000. It was going to take about 45,000 to fix it up. Easily worth 170,000. So I was going to be able to refinance it, pull cash out, do the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
I got a contractor in there because I was being cheap. I got a cheap contractor in there. And because I'm a person that doesn't like to micromanage people and I didn't have the system in place for this property, I pretty much let the contractor do his thing. I showed up one day and he was texturizing as he had put new fixtures in, which is like a big no-no. The job site was a mess. He was jumping from job to job. It was a complete disaster. And the big mistake that I made is not only did I not have the system in place or do my due diligence to make sure he was a good contractor.
Yeah.
I paid him. I had already paid him up in full and the job wasn't completed. So basically I'm out over $20,000 and I had to call up a friend that's a contractor that I never used before because I was like, oh, he's too expensive, even though he does good work. Don't be cheap, man. Don't be cheap. Anyway, so I called him up and I said, dude, I'm in a pickle. Can you come fix this? Now he's working on it and the house is fantastic. And I'm really hoping because of the work he's doing, it might appraise for more than what I originally anticipated. And I'm hoping that I'll still be able to make money on this deal.
Yeah. So the lesson there, you said it several times, don't be cheap, but I think that can apply to so many different areas of business. First off, just because something's expensive, let's identify this. Just because something's expensive doesn't mean necessarily that it's the best. There's a false understanding there as well. But this idea of I'm just going to get it for cheap, usually doesn't work out, whether that's with your team, whether that's with vendors, whether that's with, relationships with other folks. Like I have just experienced this myself. Almost the exact scenario in real estate that you just described. I went through that. I had a guy at the very last, one of his last punch list items, he wanted to do electrical. I'm like, what, bro, everything else is done. What you talking about? We need to do electrical. Anyway, the reality is that the checklist, but then it's also the mixture with, I got to find quality people.
Yeah.
What, like, coming out of that now, obviously you just said, now I've got systems in place, but how does that help you in the future, having gone through that now?
Yeah. I just had a guy on my podcast and he wrote a book about professional, I think it's called Professional Failure. But it's a great concept, and it's true in anything. Is stuff's not a failure unless you don't learn from it. Then it's a failure. This has been a very expensive learning curve for me. So now I know not to make that mistake again, but I'm so grateful that I made the mistake, because it could have been a bigger deal with more money down the road. And so I completely learned from this, and now I'm able to go forward.
Yeah. Yeah. The mindset of professionally failing is 100% right. For you, does that translate over, I'm curious, into the other businesses? Like how does it? Because it does, obviously, but how does this mistake in real estate translate over to the pest control company?
Yeah. I mean, it translates in a couple different ways. First of all, you can look at it as like, I hire the contractor. So he's essentially an employee for me, right? Hire slow, fire fast. Do your due diligence. If someone's not a right fit for the culture, or you're having some red flags, fire quickly, but hire slow. That's one thing. The other thing, probably is just to make sure you have systems and a team in place. Because that's going to propel you and help you to be successful. If it wasn't for the systems I created early on in my pest control business, and working on empowering my employees to make those decisions, to make changes so that they can continue to add to the system or improve the system, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah. One thing that you said that I want to just highlight for the listener as well. You said, I'm not the type of person that wants to micromanage. And at some point we realize that people, most people, need to be managed. That's why they're not entrepreneurs, right? Or even subcontractors, contractors that we're using, or vendors, they need to be managed to a degree. And so even though it may not be your personal trait that is a good manager, there still has to be managing traits or systems in place. And so maybe it's just a checklist for the contractor, or maybe it's now you have a checklist of how you follow up on a property or your pest control, whatever it is. The reality there is that whether as an entrepreneur, we like personally to be micromanaged, because that's really what we're saying is, I don't want to be micromanaged.
That's why I'm an entrepreneur.
That's why we're an entrepreneur. But the reality of it is that in order to get stuff done, the process has to be managed. And so if it's not you that's willing to micromanage it, or at least create the system for someone to follow, then you've got to find somebody who can ride the pony, is what I call it. Like we got to get on and we got to go. Like, otherwise it's just never going to get done, at least not to the pace that we're hoping for as entrepreneurs.
I really liked what you said too, is that the process has got to be managed. I have found that 99% of the time, if something is not happening or getting done in the workforce, a lot of times it's not the person, it's the process. So you always got to blame the process, not the person. And so you got to go back and reevaluate. We are implementing a program in my pest control company. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called 2-Second Lean. Okay. Paul Akers, the owner of FastCap, created this. And anyways, one of my mentors, I talked about him to you earlier, is Hugh Carnahan, the Hillbilly Millionaire, has taught me this platform. And essentially what it is it's all about, and this is where I think we miss the mark as business owners. Our purpose in our business, us as entrepreneurs, as business owners, our purpose is to develop our people. That's our number one job. And so if we can develop our people and empower them to problem solve and critically think, and empower them to make changes and allow them to do that, to make their life easier. So whatever's bugging them, fix that thing. Yeah. Dude, you'll start growing so much. It's just been awesome doing that with my company.
A lot of times people aren't really buying pest control. Yeah, they want the result of like getting rid of the bugs, but they want the experience. And if you can create a great experience, which to me, an experience is almost the lead measure Like, and
Mhm.
customer service is the lag measure, if that makes sense. Because customer service in
Yes.
my mind is like you're handling the problems, like they're calling, right? That's customer service. Whereas like customer experience is more like, it's more of a lead, like a lead measure. I don't know if does that make sense?
No,
So,
yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
so, um, I tell my guys all the time, and I probably got this from like the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. But
Mhm.
anytime you show up to a house, say their name multiple times, call them by name multiple
Yes.
times, and if you're in the house treating or something, like just like you said your guy was doing, like find something that you can pull from their house and talk about. For example, I remember when I was out spraying, if I saw a deer mount hanging up there with the antlers and stuff, I'd be like, oh, did you get that? Oh, you hunt? Oh, cool. And like, just start having this. Next thing you know, I created a raving fan because,
Mhm.
and loyalty because I connected with them on a personal level. So now, like, technicians, dude, are so crucial to the business because if they can make a personal connection, like most of the time they love their technician more than they do the company because they're if that makes sense. So it's
Yes.
so important to learn to get people to like you quickly.
Yes, yeah, and we've talked to our technicians all the time. We'll talk about value, like being a valuable company or offering a valuable service. And I've always taught my guys that there is a very big difference between value and cost, right? Value is what it's worth to somebody, and cost is just a number on the piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to further define value, I really truly believe that value is just a combination of personalization and relevancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to someone's house and I'm saying their name, right, and I'm showing respect, and I'm talking about the key things that I'm doing to actually benefit their particular home, right? Not just every home, but their particular home. I'm showing them that I'm personalizing the service to them. What I'm doing is absolutely relevant to the money that they spend on the service that I provide. That's what really builds value. And then from a marketing aspect, I love asking people, especially after we close, like on an inbound lead or just on a door sale or whatever it is, we'll talk about the service. They seem excited, right? And I'll say, hey, who else do you know that would love to get a great deal on a pest control service just like yours? And then just wait, see what they say. Because you'd be surprised. Sometimes they get, my dad actually has a pest control service, but it's a different company. And I know that he would love having a local guy. And you're like, well, hey, I'd love to talk to him. Would you mind if I contacted him? And you just see where that goes, right? Asking existing customers, asking leads that just close for referrals is kind of my next step from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
If you have a really good relationship and you're able to do all these things, these like quality lead measures that we talked about, then you can leverage that to create new marketing opportunities for you in the form of referrals.
I love that. So I know we're getting close on time here, but I want to transition right back to some marketing tactics besides obviously door hangers and door-to-door sales and direct mailers and stuff, and a Google My Business account, and probably creating a website. What would be some at the starting stages? Or is there some other marketing tactics that you would recommend for somebody that's just starting out, or would you kind of just stick to those basics?
Some of the stuff you talked about are really great. Like the guerrilla tactics, we're talking flyers, we're talking door hangers. You can just go out. Those are all things that you have direct control over, right? So all you got to do is put in effort and you can get a return on that. The other things, as far as visibility, we talked about Google My Business, but that's kind of a reactive thing. People have to be looking for pest control to see you. The proactive approaches are going to be social media, right? Like get on social media, get on as many social media platforms as possible and build your brand and express kind of what you're going for, your vision, your mission. You want to be the most valuable pest control service in the area. You want to be the safest pest control service in the community. Whatever your vision is, communicate it to people, right? Because sometimes people don't always connect with the need of pest control, but people can connect with your vision and your mission statement, regardless of what their current needs are. And then they can actually get on board with that, right? They might think, that guy's awesome. That guy really does kind of encapsulate the type of person that I would want to buy something from. And you know what? I don't like doing pest control. I don't like doing my own pest control anymore. I'm just going to buy that, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to call that guy.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think is really important is, share your vision, share your mission, share your brand on as many different platforms as possible. And anytime you talk to somebody, whether it's somebody that or somebody that you just introduce yourself to, carry some cards and pass them out.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, yeah, like I'd say, hey, my name's Eric. I own a local company here in the area. It's called Natura Pest Control. If you ever need a need for pest control service, give me a call. I'd love to show you the difference between my company and any other company you might use in the area.